Hi, and welcome to this week's video. I am Pastor Dave. It's good to be back with you again. And President Trump is, 2 months into his office, and he's already released his first budget. And there's been a lot of talk about the budget and what's being cut. And my concern is that the reports that you may receive or may hear is somewhat biased. When you look at the American media, it becomes very biased in one direction, and not a lot of people are supportive of President Trump and some of his ideas. So I like to read, believe it or not, other countries' newspapers. You can learn a lot about the political scene in America by looking at the United Kingdom and some other areas. And the material I'm using today came from the United Kingdom because they were just kind of quoting what's happening with the budget. And again, it's an unbiased report. And with this report from the United Kingdom, it talks about what this first budget does. I mean, there's some drastic cuts in it, but you have to understand the cuts. And I've seen this go for about a week or 10 days now, and there really hasn't been a lot of explanation about the cuts. It's just that, are you aware that Trump wants to cut out all the arts? We're going to lose Sesame Street because of Donald Trump. I mean, these are the headlines that you're hearing, that he wants to put all his money into the border wall, and he's cutting everything to do that. And it's amazing. Even some of the political people, those who are in the powers of position, some of the quotes coming from them. So I just want to spend this week's video talking a little bit about this, and then you can decide what you want to do with that from there. But his first blueprint, his first budget he's presenting to make America great again, he is cutting most of the government agencies except the Department of Defense, except Homeland Security, and except the veterans, the Veteran Administration. So those three areas are not getting cut. Now, Health and Human Services and the State Department are getting the biggest cuts on the board. So, and that makes sense when you understand that. Department of Education is getting some cuts, and that makes sense when you understand that. Some of the arts are being taken out as well, and PBS is one of the things that are funded, but they have other revenue streams and other ways of funding. Now, the state is being cut with 29% reduction, and basically the big cut is coming from foreign aid. Now, do we need to be spending billions of dollars over into other countries? Some of the critics, the professional critics, those in Congress or those in powers that may be, they say that this will put our national security at risk. Well, if we are paying a country billions of dollars and that's the only thing keeping us safe, are we really safe? So foreign aid is being cut. Now, when you hear that, you think about, well, what is foreign aid going to? The majority of foreign aid went to, or a large chunk of foreign aid went to programs to help HIV and AIDS, to help with malaria, to help with humanitarian crises. Those funds aren't being cut. So when we say the State Department's getting cut, I mean, it's still being funded for things, but some of the cuts are coming out of foreign aid. So just understand what those cuts are and where they're going to. Health and Human Services is going to lose $15.1 billion, which is an 18% cut. Again, entitlements, some of the entitlement programs in the last administration, the last numbers out were almost half of Americans, 50% of Americans, half the households in America. Somebody in that household were receiving some kind of funds or some kind of entitlement from the American government. Now, some of that was Social Security, so that does sway the numbers somewhat. I will acknowledge that. But when half the country is relying somewhat on the government for a portion, if not a majority of their income, that needs to be looked at. That's a very unhealthy situation. Now, the EPA, the Environment Protection Agency, that is also being cut. It's facing a $2.6 billion cut, or about 31%. And what they're cutting there is the global warming. And there's been things going back since Al Gore and what global warming is and so on and so forth. And Donald Trump is saying, we need to build our military up, we need to take care of our country, and these are the things that have to be cut. And they make sense when you look at what he's cutting. Now, some of the cuts he's making, again, are dramatic. People will think they're very dramatic, and the majority of the money he's saving is going towards immigration. $2.8 billion towards immigration, and 2.6 of that 2.8 is going for the border wall. He wants to start that wall, building that wall now. He doesn't want to wait a year to do it or 2 years to do it. He wants to get going on that right now. He's also beefing up our Defense Department. $54 billion is being reassigned to our military. He's saying basically the vehicles they have, the aircraft they have, they're outdated. We don't have enough ammunition, we don't have enough resources for them, they don't have enough supplies. So we're going to make sure our defense, our military, has everything they need. So he's moving money around in his budget to put $54 billion towards that. You know, the American first, it's a hard power budget, and he says this was done very intentionally. And when you understand the reason behind that, my concern is, okay, he's cutting the arts. Yeah, PBS is part of that, and that's being cut. And they're saying eventually, they're cutting it now. Eventually, they're going to kind of phrase it out of receiving any kind of funds at all. So they would have to find other avenues to fund their programs. What I'm concerned about is somebody saying, you know, well, Donald Trump, President Trump, just wants to pull all the feathers out of Big Bird. You know, or he's got, you know, Elmo in a choke lock or something, and this is what our president's doing. This is the kind of man we have in office. He's taking money away from certain areas, and that's one of the areas for our military, for immigration, for our safety, for our well-being. Department of Education is being cut some. Now, when you hear that, who wants to mess with education? No one wants to mess with education. He's just moving money around into private and charter schools. He's moving it around to give people more free choice with schools. The Department of Education was started in 1979 in the Carter administration, and really it's done everything it was supposed to do. So if that department went away, I'm not sure a lot of people would miss it, because our schools and our kids aren't getting the best that they have, and the plans that they're moving now will help students eventually. We're on the right path there. So to understand when he says, well, he's cutting education, he's taking away Big Bird, he's just wanting to build a wall and keep people out. Understand what the budget means, understand what the budget says, understand what the cuts represent. The President Budget Director, he said, and I'm going to quote him here, it says, "It will be up to affected agencies to figure out how to implement the cuts. We've given them a tremendous amount of flexibility with their own agencies this year." Now, in 2017, the State Department received $38 billion, and 22.7 went to foreign aids. Now, when it went to foreign aid, it went to economic development of other countries. It went to infrastructure, building buildings for other countries. It went to internet access for other countries. And it went to humanitarian aids, i.e. HIV, AIDS, malaria. There will be plenty of money in the State Department to help countries that need help. If they have problems with water, if they have problems with disease, if they have problems with sickness, if they have food shortage, we will still be able to help them. We may not be able to help them stay online. We may not be able to help build every road that they need. We may not be able to help them build every building they want to build. That's where the foreign aid is being cut, that and cutting checks to other nations. It comes down to NATO as well, supporting NATO. It comes down to the United Nations, where America has been burdening most of the burden, or a good portion of it. And all President Trump is saying, we just can't spend money like that. We can't spend it on NATO, can't spend it on the UN, can't spend it, doing internet and buildings and roads for other countries. We need to dial back and look at America here. That's what this budget's all about. So you can agree, you can disagree. I just want you to have the information, because you're not getting it. I haven't seen it. Maybe we'll get it, maybe things will change, but I haven't seen it in the American media yet. And I haven't seen those in the professional position, the Congress, the House, and so on and so forth, who could say something, who are against this, come out and say anything that really resembles something that will give you the truth and the backstory to understand it. I just want you to be able to make an informed decision and understand what's being done behind the curtain. And again, you can agree or disagree, but I think this budget and this thinking and the way that this is being planned out, it really is to take care of America's first needs. And let's take care of ourselves, and then we can help other people. My last comment is, if you're on an airline and they tell you, if you're on the airline, if the oxygen falls down, what are you supposed to do? If you have a child with you, what do? Our instinct as a parent is to help our child, but they say take care of yourself first, and then you'll be able to help your child, because if you don't take care of yourself, you won't be able to help anyone else. And that's kind of what America needs to do right now. We are very, very weak in many areas, and our finances, our military, these are the two things that have kept nations at bay. This is what helped to keep Russia at bay, this is what helped keep China at bay, and so on and so forth. So we need to focus on making sure our economy is strong and making sure that we are safe. Anyhow, that's the video for this week. I look forward to seeing you again next week. So between now and then, whatever you do, just God bless you.